For a long, long time, the path to a great career felt pretty straightforward, right? You get the right degree, maybe the right certification, and you're set. Well, that whole playbook is changing, and it's changing fast. We're right in the middle of this massive shift in how we signal our value professionally. So let's get into what that actually means for all of us. To really get what's happening, let me start by asking you a question. When you send in your resume for a job, how long do you think you have to actually make that first impression? A minute? Maybe 30 seconds? What's your guess? The answer, according to the research, is, well, it's kind of shocking. It's just 7.4 seconds. That's it. 7.4 seconds. I mean, that's less time than it takes to skip an ad on YouTube. In that tiny, tiny window, a huge decision gets made. You're either in the yes pile or the no pile. This high-speed reality is literally rewriting the rules of the game. So, what on earth is happening in a recruiter's brain during those 7 seconds? Let's be real. They're not deeply reading every word. They can't. They're scanning, using these mental shortcuts just to survive the absolute avalanche of applications they get every day. So here's how our brains cope with that information overload. Recruiters, like all of us, rely on these things called cognitive biases to make quick judgments. For example, you've got the halo effect. That's where one really impressive thing, like seeing Harvard on a resume, can make them view everything else you've done through a golden filter. Or there's the availability heuristic, which means one super memorable project you listed can totally overshadow a boring list of credentials. And then there's confirmation bias. Once they get a gut feeling, they start looking for things that prove their first impression was right. And this quote just nails the whole shift we're talking about. A fancy degree creates a halo of, let's call it, institutional approval. It just signals that you got into a certain system. But, a blog post where you break down a really tricky problem you solved, that creates a totally different and arguably more powerful halo, one of demonstrated competence. It's not about where you've been, it's about what you can do. This brings us to a really big problem. The traditional signals, the proxies for skill that we've relied on for basically a century, they're starting to break down. They're just not working like they used to. And you don't have to take my word for it. Just look at the data. An incredible 86% of employers see value in things like non-degree certificates. 78%, almost 4 out of 5, think work experience is just as, if not more valuable than a degree. But here's the kicker. Only 37% believe that higher education is actually preparing students with the skills they need for the job. Do you see the gap here? It's huge. And this gap, this disconnect, has a massive human cost. It's affecting 70 million skilled, talented workers in the US alone who are being overlooked for jobs they are more than qualified to do. Researchers have a name for this. They call it the paper ceiling. It's this invisible, artificial wall that stops skilled workers, they call them STARs, which stands for skilled through alternative routes, from getting jobs they could excel at, all because they don't have one specific piece of paper. The old system is literally filtering out amazing talent. Okay, so if the old system is broken, what's actually replacing it? This, right here, is the core of the signaling revolution. It's a fundamental shift away from proving you completed something to proving you're competent. This slide really breaks it down beautifully. On one side, you have proof of completion. Think of a college degree. It's a static snapshot from your past. It basically answers the question, what did you learn? But then you have proof of work. A project you built, an article you wrote, a piece of code you shipped. This is a real-time signal of your skills right now. And it answers a much, much more interesting question for an employer. How do you think? And the way you create all this proof of work has this really cool name, learning exhaust. I love that term. It's the digital trail of breadcrumbs you leave behind when you stop learning in private and start documenting your journey for everyone to see. And this trail is incredibly valuable. I mean, think about it from an employer's point of view. It shows them how your brain works. It signals that you're a curious person who is committed to learning. And especially in a remote world, it's undeniable proof that you can communicate your ideas clearly in writing. It just cuts through all the fluff on a resume and shows them the real you. All right, so that's the theory. But let's look at how this is actually playing out in the real world, with real companies and real people who are using this new approach to totally change the game. This quote from Sahil Avingia, the founder of Gumroad, just perfectly captures the whole philosophy. His company, Gumroad, has basically thrown resumes in the trash. They don't really care about your past credentials. They just want to know what you can contribute to the team right here, right now. And here's how they do it. Their entire hiring process is built around work.
You start with a strategic challenge. If you do well on that, you move to a paid trial period where you're fixing real bugs and shipping actual features for the company. It's simple. If you can do the work, you're in. It's hiring based on pure competence.
What's really cool is that this approach also flips how you find opportunities, or maybe how they find you. There's this concept called luck's surface area. The idea is that the more great work you put out into the world and the more people who see it, the more likely it is that something lucky, like an amazing job offer, will just land in your lap. A perfect example is the developer Sean Wang, who documented his whole journey of learning to code online and ended up getting job offers from huge companies like AWS. But it's not a perfect utopia, right? This shift toward public work is really powerful, but it also brings a whole new set of pretty serious challenges and questions we need to think about. And we have to ask the hard question: is this new system truly equitable? Is it fair for everyone? Or are we just tearing down old walls to build new ones? So let's break down some of the biggest concerns. First, there's the posting paradox. Creating all this public content, the blogs, the projects, it takes a ton of unpaid time and energy. That's a luxury not everyone can afford. Then you have good old-fashioned affinity bias. When recruiters look at social media, they might unconsciously favor people who look, talk, and think just like them. And finally, if we start using AI to sift through all this content, and those AI models are trained on biased data, they could end up just making the same old inequalities even worse. So, what's the big takeaway from all this? We are leaving an era where your value was kind of fixed, stamped on a diploma, and we are entering the age of the intellectual athlete. In this new world, your value is dynamic. It's determined by your continuous, public demonstration of learning, thinking, and solving problems. Your resume is slowly becoming a relic. Your public output, your thinking, made visible for all to see, is becoming your most powerful asset. So the only question left is, what story is your work telling?